Spawning at the bottom right, we have our pink Protoss playing for Dragon Phoenix Gaming. Guys, put your hands together for Zest.
And spawning in the top left. Give it up for the blue Protoss from Alpha X. He is the one returning player. Is Classic. All right, so looking at this series, or just these two players head to head, we actually see that this year they haven't played each other that often. The last time has kind of been, well, GSL Code A of Season 3 and ESL Cup number 88 of Korea. And both times Zest has actually won. They've been close matches, so I would love to see this series go the distance as well. And maybe we can see Classic finally pull off a win, but it is a tall order, against Zest, who has been showing some real Protoss dominance here lately.
Yeah, for sure. Looks like both players are going to go ahead and open up pretty standard thus far, so no proxies out there or anything. Of course, they can proxy their second pylon, but I think it'll be a bit late right now to kind of proxy a second pylon right now. So yeah, it looks like they're going to place into their base.
Yeah, nothing too crazy. Both players just trying to get a scout with their probes, just trying to be annoying as possible. Of course, classic Protoss stuff. We're going to wait and see, just kind of see where they want to go with this. Are they wanting to open up into Stalkers, which looks like that is going to be the case. We're going to see, does one of these players want to get super aggressive, go for maybe some kind of Stalker aggro play, or will we actually start getting some bases in and see a more drawn-out macro game?
Well, it looks like both players has elected to go for the 2 Stalker openings, so we'll see if they follow that up with 2 more Stalkers, or maybe they mix in a Sentry or so.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that. We do actually see Classic going for a robotics facility pretty quickly here, which, I don't mind this at all. He could either go straight into something crazy like disruptors, or just use that for a war prism. I know sometimes they like to use that to help kind of micro and give themselves a quicker blink, as it were, with the Stalker. So we'll see how that transitions. And it does look like Zest behind all of this is going to go for a Nexus. So a little bit of difference already from both players.
Yeah, it looks like a Classic going to go ahead and put on some pressure with that robotics facility, not going for that Nexus of his. So we should have a move out. And the good thing for him is that he actually prevented Zest from getting any scouting, because he's sitting on top of the ramp and kind of not allowing Zest to kind of go further in to scout that there is actually no Nexus.
Right. Yep, we are going to actually see Zest finally make his way to the natural scans, and does actually see that there is no Nexus, like you said. Behind this, Zest is going to go ahead and get his Twilight Council, so Blink will be on the way pretty quickly. Classic able to kind of shut things down, and now Classic going to move across the map, looking to put on his own pressure. He has a pylon across the map, warping in those additional Stalkers, and we're going to see a nice little counter pressure coming out here from Classic. Will he be able to get something done, and will Zest be able to actually get some mining done from this Nexus?
Ooh, I'm afraid that the shield battery might be a bit kind of late here. I'm not sure if it's going to finish in time before this fight actually starts. And here we go. Classic gonna go in with, let's see how many Stalkers, that 9 Stalkers out on the field, and also with that War Prism micro potential. This is going to be a tough hold for Zest, but Zest's shield battery does get sniped down.
Yes, this is really good. Some good force fields do come out from Zest, but the micro looking pretty good here from Classic. Blink still that halfway done for Zest. Oh no, he gets the War Prism, and that last observe. Oh my goodness, I can't even talk. Last Sentry ends up GGing out, and the Classic ends up taking the victory there in game number 1. Alrighty, Classic starting out strong with that big push. Will we see that continued aggression from Classic, or will we see maybe a more slowed down game? I know sometimes players, especially at this caliber, if they don't feel so confident against a player, they might do more aggressive builds. They might try to do some cheesing. Will we see that from, players like this? I mean, Classic obviously going for that more aggro aggressive build. Does he not want to go that longer game against Zest? We'll see.
I do feel like if maybe the game does go longer, that it might actually favor Zest. I feel like right now, in terms of their status, I think Zest does have the advantage in the long macro game, while Classic, if he can kind of condense it into more of like these timing attacks or catching Zest off guard, I think that actually will spell advantageous for Classic instead. So as you can see, Classic with the sneaky little probe here, once again throwing down that proxy pylon. We'll see what that is for as we progress along this game here.
Definitely, I wouldn't mind seeing a Stargate coming out here from Classic. Going to some kind of Oracle play would be really nice, especially, Zest is opening up double stalkers, but he's sending those across the map. He's looking to put some pressure at the base of Classic. So will he have enough to defend against something like that? We'll see.
There we have it. Stargate opening for Classic. And so far, Zest not going to be able to scout this in time, as his probe is all the way... Oh, actually, you know what? His rally is just might be on the edge of that Stargate, so will be funny to see if that does actually... if that probe does actually scout that Stargate there.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is Zest is actually sending out his stalkers. He has a sense that there could be some kind of proxy out there, but he isn't going to scout it until almost the last minute here. He's going to go into a robotics facility, throwing down a third gateway. So it does have some kind of hint, and there we go. Zest that does end up finding it. The Stargate already finished, and it is going to be that Oracle opening, getting it chronoed out. And we'll see Classic even throwing out his two stalkers. Does get one of his own, and Zest going to clean up one as well. So kind of an interesting start, as Classic's going to continue to put that pressure. He needs to keep this Stargate alive if he wants to get it out. Will it finish in time?
Oh. Wow,
what
that, yeah, that's so sad here for Classic. Just a second longer, and he would have been able to get at least one Oracle out there.
Yeah, I mean, so close. If he would have been able to get the Oracle out, we definitely could have seen some damage done, at least force Zest to play a little bit more defensive. But now he's held that off. He's held out the stalkers. And now he's just going to go across the map, going to put on some pressure of his own. And this time, Classic, the one taking an expansion. He does have shield batteries coming up, and they will be done in time. But he's not going to have the same micro potential as Zest. And this might be the end of Classic in the tie series coming through here for Zest. We'll see if he can hold this.
All right. Here we go. Zest gonna go ahead and dive on in here. We'll go ahead and focus fire on one of these stalkers. Can he get the second one? He does. Shield battery overcharge does get activated. However, that is gonna get immediately sniped down.
Oh no! Somehow keeps it alive, but Zest just gonna back off for the time being. Does give Classic an opportunity to start making some more. But keep in mind, Zest has that War Prism. If he wants to, he can split this army up and go straight into the main base if he chooses, but he does have to be careful because a lot of these stalkers are a little low here. Shield batteries are about out of energy, and now Zest just kind of playing this back and forth for the moment. Does give Classic an opportunity to still build up that army.
Oh, look at that. Big Daddy Immortal does join into the fray.
Keep in mind that Classic actually sends a pylon to hook up that Stargate once again, so still has the availability to use that if he wants to. We do see a probe for Zest trying to take care of that at the same time, but now we have sentries in play for Zest. There is that Immortal, and still just more Stalkers, chronoing out a second Immortal. Definitely we could see Classic use that later. Actually have to recall. Pretty good force field there. Focusing down the War Prism, not able to get it. And Classic having to split this army up, and I think for the moment he is going to hold this. He's got to be careful though.
Yeah, so time does go on and prolongs. Classic will go ahead and be able to, of course, defend this much easier. He does have, of course, has the robotics facility still being able to produce immortals. Although, as I say that, it looks like he has elected to go for his war prism of his own in order to match the micro potential that Zest does currently enjoys.
Yeah, definitely. Zest going to be going into that robotics bay, which will open up the possibility for disruptors if this continues on. I mean, I guess he could go into, say, Colossus, but I don't think that's really going to be an option in Classic. Just going to continue to have to hold on to this. The Adepts shading in, get a little bit of damage done, but of course that War Prism just picks him right up, moves him back, and I think for the time being, Zest just needs to hold back. He's continuing to put this pressure, but keep in mind, Classic does have an expansion out now. His economy is going to be a little bit better, and eventually, if he can continue to hold this, we're going to start seeing that transition into, you know, more units here for Classic. So Zest going for a little bit of an adept push into the main base, does shade back to keep in line with the War Prism, gets a couple of probes, picks up, and can just get straight out. It's not bad.
Yeah, any little bit of damage you can do always helps.
Yeah. We do not have any blink or anything, so just going to be continued harassment with that War Prism, I think, is really nice. But Zest, I guess, deciding to go back home and maybe prepare for some kind of a counterattack, or just make sure he has stuff at home. Does have that first disruptor out, and we'll see. He's going to continue to make disruptors. We'll start getting into that disruptor ball game.
Yeah, I do like this kind of interesting decision to go for War Prism speed. Of course, you don't normally see this. Although, as I say that, I mean, I guess it's understandable. You don't want to lose that War Prism full of disruptors, because those disruptors, they pack a punch for sure. But here we go. Looks like Classic is on the offense here.
Ooh, good disruptor shot coming out from Zest on the other side of the map. Force fields will kind of push Classic back for the time being. Focuses down the disruptor, instantly gets a recall. Overcharge activated, but gonna get it completely shut down. These immortals just dealing out so much damage. Disruptor shot looking to come back in. It gets a huge hit there onto the Stalkers. And Classic just not able to dodge it. And now what was looking really good for Classic, starting to look pretty good here for Zest. Gets the Warp Prism, the last warp in available here for Classic. And it looks like it's just going to get completely shut down here, and Zest able to push this back. And now can even get on the offensive if he wants to.
Oh boy, these Stalkers. I'm not sure. Okay, there we go. It looks like they were just by the skin of their teeth escape. I was a little bit worried because, I mean, Classic not in the best shape right now, and if he lose additional units, that would have been quite horrible.
Yeah, it really would have. We do actually see the Adepts looking to warp into the natural once again. Ends up canceling it. Here come those disruptors. I'm not sure exactly what he was wanting to do there. Some good splits coming out from Classic, but does get 2 more probes. And yeah, I mean, the thing is like Classic is still ahead in workers after all of that. He doesn't really have the army, so the longer he can draw this out, the quicker he can kind of recalibrate that and get more. But he's only on 3 gates. I think Zest is on 4. Yeah, he's on 4 at the moment, so still, he's got to be careful he doesn't get outproduced here. And once again, we see Classic just getting essentially barricaded into his own base. Now Zest's going to back up, so not going to be the same. Oh! 7 probes get killed. 10 in total there. God, Zest is just so mean with these disruptors.
Like these bully disruptors here.
It's one of those things like, you know, Classic had such a strong army. His push, I think, could have killed Zest, but those disruptors are so much of a turn of the tide. If you just get a good hit on an army, it just completely evaporates them. So We see that coming out here from Zest, and as long as he continues to hit these shots, it's going to make it harder and harder here for Classic to keep this pressure up.
Looks like the Classic gonna go ahead and go for a little bit of harassment himself, but I think he might be. Ooh, that was a bit risky. He was trying to focus fire on that pylon, but of course, it was either lose the Warp Prism or lose the pylon, or sorry, snipe the pylon, and he decided, of course, it was probably the smart choice to save the pylon there. And oh, actually, that's a huge pickoff. Classic taking down that Warp Prism filled with 2 disruptors. I think that might have given him a little bit of a boost, but I still prefer and favor Zest's position right now.
Yeah, I mean, right now Zest has that army advantage, and even now the worker advantage. And because of that, it does make it a little bit tougher for Classic. Now, Classic does have Blink, as Blink has just started for Zest, so that does give a little bit of some help to Classic if he does decide to push into this. But we see just the Immortal count coming out from Zest. 4 Immortals to the just 1 Immortal coming out from a Classic. So, yeah, he has the Stalker advantage, but it's shortly going to get taken care of, and I just don't like this right now for Classic. He wants to push, he wants to get aggressive here, but obviously he sees the army. What can you do here?
Yeah, not a lot, especially since there's 4 Immortals in Zest's army compared to only the 1 of Classic. Now, the one thing that I think Classic can hang his hat on is that there is no dirt base here yet for Zest. So at least, at the very least, they're on equal basis. But as I say that, of course, Classic throw down his dirt base. And we actually have a little bit of a army out of position here for Zest, and Classic will strike. Can he get onto the high ground though?
It looks like he's going to try. Beautiful move coming out from Classic as Zest was trying to push across the map, and now we're going to see these Stalkers push in. Just go ahead and recall. He doesn't get 2 of them. That's okay. He's at least able to get that natural, and now Classic back onto a 2 base economy. Looks like he cancels the 3rd, knowing that there was a counterattack on the way. He still has that Stargate. I wouldn't mind seeing him throw something with it, but I guess because of how things are shaping up, he can't really afford to really use anything. And now Classic, with those 3 Immortals, will give him a little bit better advantage into this fight, but it's still going to be a tall order for Classic. He needs to hold on right here, right now.
Oh, that is a 20 army supply lead here for Zest, but of course, Classic does have the defender's advantage. And he does have a lot of shield batteries, so maybe that can help him hold here. And if he holds, he will be back into this game.
He has kind of recuperated the worker lead here. Well, he doesn't have the lead yet, but he is at least getting closer to the workers of Zest. Keep in mind, Zest just now having to remake that natural. He does have a 3rd base on the way. The Immortals for Zest going to go into the main base, shutting down some of the production here. At the same time, going to push towards the front. And the Classic just having to be defensive on both fronts at the moment. Really having to spread himself thin. He had some good sentry play there, but unfortunately, he cannot take a full fight against what Zest has. Does have charge, which is really nice, but Zest has +1. So his Stalkers are going to hit harder. His Adepts, I believe, also gain benefit from that. So,
yeah, and also looks like Zest has started to get back into disruptor production, and that is also going to help him hold this dirt here.
Classic finally does regenerate that Stargate, and this might be exactly what he needs. He does have that first Immortal out. It looks like he wants to put some pressure up to the front, keep Zest distracted, and then eventually we will see this Oracle come into the main. Oh, already gets scouted. Zest's going to warp in a few Stalkers, blinks forward, and yeah. Nothing too exciting happening, but you know, he does have that Oracle. Maybe even use some stasis. That'd be pretty nice.
Oh, doesn't quite actually focus fire on the disruptor. Immediately does suffer a hit there on a lot of these immortals, so they are in quite low life. But nice force field does segment some of these army here, but Blink is finished here for Zest, so he will go ahead and jump right below that War Prism. No reinforcement here for Classic, and Classic, his army is just going to get absolutely decimated, and GG, Zest ties up the series.
You know, I gotta give it up for Classic. He really has been showing some strong plays against Zest. Really showing that he can muscle with Zest and kind of stay with him through this all. Did some really good plays there, able to catch the move out from Zest and to, you know, take out the natural, like we said. I feel like had he not tried to commit to another fight or try to go into a big push, maybe he could have sat back, got his third base, and did something else with it. But also, he had to be careful. He couldn't just sit there because, of course, Zest did have those disruptors out, and with the War Prism, just it's a tough call if you're Classic. You know, if you sit back and turtle, maybe you get that advantage. Maybe you can build up an army and attack, but also you're going to have to do everything you can to fend off those disruptors, fend off the constant harassment. And Zest was looking for an attack. He had that upgrade advantage. It's such a tough call, but Classic making the best of what he could. Zest here in game number 3. I'm interested to see what he does. Does he continue to play this kind of standard style that he's been going for? And it looks like no. He's going to go into Stalker and Sentry, but it looks like Classic is going to do the same thing here.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of different, of course, openings. You could get Stalker, you could get Depth to Depth, you could get Stalker, Sentry. I mean, you do sometimes really do see maybe a 2 Stalker opening, which will be quite rare. But of course, you know, I think the most common ones are the Depth to Depth or Stalker, or Stalker, Sentry.
Classic going to be going into a Stargate this time once again, but actually building it into his own base. So I wouldn't mind seeing him go into like a 3 Oracle opening. I know it's not as popular right now, but I definitely think against a player like Zest, we could see that work out. Of course, Zest going for that double Sentry style, not really going into many Stalkers. And he is going to push across and look to get some aggression. But of course, Classic will see this with his own hallucinated Phoenix, and Zest actually will scout out the Stargate. So if you're Zest in this situation, you just go ahead and say, okay, I can sit back. I don't have to worry about too much at the moment. Or do I just say, okay, I can go and attack? You're not going to really have anything.
The good news for Zest is that he does not only scout the Stargate, but he went for the actually the correct counter to it, which is the Twilight Council, which is pretty nice for him. That of course allows him to get Blink, which allows him to get on top of those Phoenixes if Zest does elect to go, or sorry, Classic does elect to go for Phoenixes, or if it's an Oracle, as looks like Classic is going, Zest can of course blink those Stalkers underneath the Oracle and take them out. You really need like 2 Oracles at the very least to like really quick snipe those probes, especially with Stalkers underneath them. So it looks like Classic is gonna go ahead and go for that.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. We'll see if he goes for a third. Looks like he's just going to stay with the 2, which is perfectly fine. And if he doesn't find really any damage with him, he can definitely use those later on for stasises. He can use them for revelates. Keep an eye on the army, of course. He will eventually have observers if he needs to, but they're at least a good kind of early game, mid game style unit to have. We do have the Stalkers for Zest coming forward. There's quite a bit here. Gonna focus onto the Stalkers. Does get a good force field. Takes out the Sentry of Classic. And it looks like Classic just going to kind of essentially fall on his face there with the Stalkers, but Oracle's gonna get a couple of kills and eventually will look to make their way out. He's got to be careful. Blink is about to finish up for Zest, and he ends up losing 1 Oracle. Just not the best play here from Classic, opening up on game 3.
Yeah, I think it will be still okay if you just lost the 1 Oracle, but his units, his whole entire army got force fielded and was able to be taken out. And so now, Classic in quite a detriment right here, as he is down by quite a large amount of army supply.
Yeah. Really good stuff there from Classic. Alright, so Classic doing some neat little things. He is trying to, I guess, stay away from just plain stalkers. He is trying to get, the oracles, and I think on a map like Blackburn, I don't mind an oracle opening. Of course, we do have more open space. The bases are a little bit closer, and we could see something like that happen. But Zest, he's one of those players that opens up Blink quite a bit, it feels like, and then he kind of transitions into that heavy Zealot play. So it's one of those tough things where it's like, Classic, if he can go into Stargate, go into Oracle, yeah, maybe he could get some damage, but against a player like Zest, it's just so tough to do.
Yeah, now that you mentioned it, I think historically Zest has been more of a kind of a Blink Stalker kind of guy, compared to, let's say, someone like Trap, who is probably more prone to go for a Stargate opening himself. And, it's a matter of playstyle. This kind of comes down to how do you best utilize whichever tech path you go for. And Zest, being that he has been to multiple GSL finals, has shown that Blink Stalkers are a very, very viable option, but also Stargate, very, very safe as well.
I feel like the Blink Stalker is kind of considered like not necessarily like the standard. I mean, I know it is standard, but it is kind of like one of those builds that opening up with it feels like it makes it safe against, any kind of harassment or just like Stargate openers and stuff like that. And once again, we see Classic going into that Stargate. He's going to proxy it up in the north corner. As much as I like that, it is so far away from the base of Zest that, by the time those oracles get there, will they be able to get any damage done? I mean, the bases are kind of tucked away in the corners, so I'm not sure how I like this placement.
Yeah, to be honest, personally, I have never understood why you would proxy your Stargate further away. I mean, I get the idea that you want to hide it and kind of catch your opponent off guard, but usually it's like near to your opponent's base so that your oracles can kind of arrive a bit sooner. By the time that oracle arrives, like, there's going to be stalkers out, there's going to be possibly a shield battery as well. It's like going to make it a little bit harder to actually get damage done.
They'll never see my oracle across the map. It's like, yeah, and you're not going to get nothing done with it. Anyways, we do have the oracle coming in for Classic now. Already, we do have 3 stalkers. The probe for Classic does move up, sees that the stalkers are in place. No, it looks like it's going to be War Prism coming out from Zest. So, no Blink at this time, but he does at least have those stalkers. He's already... he's just going to go to a cross and attack. One of the things that is so hard for Protoss is when they go into the Stargate style, they don't have a lot of units. They're sacrificing some unit economy to basically try to get a one-up on you. And so we see this coming out right now. Classic doesn't really have units. He's got 3 stalkers and a zealot. That's not going to do much against 9 stalkers, a zealot, and a war prism. The 2 oracles are nice for getting some probe damage done, but when you have a player like Zest looking to get some damage done, it's going to be tough. Yeah, you might get some probe kills, but you have to survive the fight at your own base. Even having to pull a couple of probes, Classic trying to hold this off. Gets the warp prism, or excuse me, the cybernetics core, so no more stalkers for Classic. Cross map, even losing an oracle. Oh, this is just not going Classic's way.
Yeah, I mean, all he can really warp in is those zealots. He does at least have a mortal arriving. If he can get the immortal and then maybe recall his oracles to join up in the fight, I think he can actually possibly hold. However, it looks like Zest is going to circumvent those shield batteries at the front. Go for the backside instead.
Yeah, I like this play so much. I mean, it's going to keep at least Classic busy. Does get another probe kill, or excuse me, a pylon kill. And this does give Classic an opportunity to build out another Immortal and maybe have some kind of damage, but even then, just is not a good fight here for Classic. I mean, just look at how his buildings are set up. If somehow Zest gets up here and shuts down the pylon, ooh, really good stasis ward there.
Yeah, and the funny part is that Zest actually was trying to, he did scout it, he was trying to surround it. Unfortunately, it worked against his against his advantage, and yeah, a little bit of a missed mining time there, or delayed rather.
But looking into the natural of Classic, I mean, he's got that single pylon trying to operate basically all of his production at the moment, besides his robotics facility. So if Zest somehow gets in here and shuts that down, it's going to make it so hard for Classic to reinforce this army. When you have a big army like what Zest has, getting in like no production is not good. But you got to give it to Classic, though. He's doing a pretty good job so far of holding this off. It does give him time to start building up more and more Immortals, which I think Immortals are going to be the biggest key for the success or failure here of Classic holding this.
Some nice force field does give Classic a little bit more time to get that third Immortal out. Oh, it looks like it is already out. Okay. And yeah, GG. I think Zest knows that it's like he's on one base versus two, and he really can't break that front, it seems like. So yeah, it looks like Classic will tie up the series. And ladies and gentlemen, we are headed to game number 5.
All right, so game number 5. Kind of interested to see what ends up happening. It has been very, very similar builds each game. So yeah, I'm excited to see, do we have that constant pressure coming out from both sides? Will we actually have a little bit more longer macro game? Who knows?
Yeah, this series has been a little bit wonky, a little bit not crazy wonky, but just a tad bit wonky in terms of, you know, kind of the decisions that they have gone for. And yeah, I feel like anything can happen in this final game, as many PvPs are kind of like up in the air, kind of coin flippy at times. Sometimes it does come down to just like blind count or blind build order counters, or just catching your opponent just off guard. Maybe they're like moving out across the map while the oracles comes in. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this final game does pan out.
We see Zest opening up into that Stalker Sentry, while as Classic is opening up into double Stalker. Zest throwing down the pylons, so that way Classic can't take his expansion, but we'll at least be able to kind of see what Classic is wanting to do. Zest, of course, looking to take his own expansion. Does know at least that Classic wants to maybe go into that more macro-centric style play. So, and again, Classic with the proxy Stargate.
Oh. I feel like this might be just like a... Oops. I feel like this might be just like just a tad bit late. I feel like that third pylon could have gone down a bit earlier. But we'll see if this does catch Zest off guard, as currently he does not, I don't believe, yeah, he has not scouted that Stargate. But I mean, that probe that's coming in might give a little bit of a hint.
Yeah, we're going to see Classic start putting some pressure onto the natural now of Zest. Of course, this will force Zest to move his units to the natural itself. Sentries are going to at least kind of block in the Stalkers here from Classic, and that does give an opportunity for Classic to build out the Oracle. But he's got to be careful here. He's going to warp in a couple of Adepts with this, and I don't mind that at all, especially we've seen him do some good Adept play. Maybe go into the main, pick off a couple of probes at the same time. Ooh, Zest actually moving out at the wrong time, warping in at the bottom instantly. Zest going to have to pull those probes out of the main. does get 3 probe kills, and at the same time, we are going to see these adepts now into the natural, and just going to continue on. And this is the classic we like to see, getting that damage done. I don't like that warping though, or the finished shade. Let's get 6 probe kills, but is that really worth it? We do have 2 more, or excuse me, another Oracle joining forces with the first. Let's see if he can continue on some pressure, but now that Zest knows this, will he be able to get as much done?
Alright, 2 more adepts gonna go ahead and dive on in. Wow, these oracles actually coming through the backside. Oh, actually he does let her finish as the oracles also joins up into the fight. Gotta focus on those probes though. Actually gonna focus down on the sentries, which is actually not the bad alternative, but additional probes going down can get 7th. 12.
Look like it. Well, he still keeps one of the oracles alive, which is actually really nice. Behind this, we are going to see immortals coming out, additional adepts for Classic as well as Zest. Still just trying to pump out those probes as much as possible, and he really hasn't been able to go into any kind of tech tree besides just the Stalkers. Does have the Twilight Council, and he does have Blink complete. So there is that, and he's going to put on some pressure across the map, but with the immortals there, with the shield batteries and the sentries, Classic looking pretty good so far.
Yeah, and oh man, 2 more probes coming in here. This is so annoying for Zest, losing even more probes, and he really can't afford to lose any more probes as he is down by 13 workers right now, and he didn't really get too much done across the map because Classic's defense was on point. He had the shield batteries, he had the immortal timing down right, and now Zest, he's gonna have to find some way somehow to pull a magic out of the hat and climb himself back out of this hole.
Definitely. I mean, Zest doing a good job of finding that proxy Stargate, shutting it down behind this Classic, taking a 3rd base, expanding out, so that way he's not all crumped up in that natural. And we'll see here. I mean, we do have additional gateways coming out from Zest. Looks like he's going to continue to push, and it feels like he has to, right? It's kind of that same situation we had from Classic where it's like, if I just sit back and turtle and try to rebuild this, he's going to continue to put that pressure on me. So I need to go across, see if I can maybe take out a couple of units, take out maybe a probe or 2 if somehow, while I build up at home. And we are going to see him throw down additional gateways, additional pylons, and just continue to try to build up that Stalker army. But I'm afraid with how many immortals that we have out so far for Classic, that's going to be a tall order. He does have his robotics facility on the way. And eventually he can get into that immortal play himself, but how long can he just sit back and let Classic, especially now on a 3rd base, continue to do so?
Yeah, I think the time is or the clock is running, and it's going to be up to Zest to kind of force his way through, because right now it's not like he has like disruptors out there to help break that 3rd somehow. Instead, it looks like Zest gonna go ahead and play the long game, and I think that actually might be the best choice, because right now I don't think he has enough units, especially since he's behind in the army supply, to really go for an all-in. So he is going to go ahead and just rely on disruptors because disruptors are one of the best Protoss comeback units. It's either DTs or disruptors, and in this scenario, I think DTs probably not the best case, especially since there's a robotics facility out there, and I think disruptor is the kind of the best way to go.
Definitely. I mean, now we have Archons on the table, as Classic already has a Templar Archives up. He's already warped in a single Archon to lead the charge. He does have High Templar coming in as well. Okay, he is going to morph that into a 2nd Archon. Finally getting +1, so he will be even in upgrades with Zest. Zest already has that +2, and he does have those disruptors, like you said. And we've seen Zest with these disruptors before. If there's ever a time for him to come back, it's going to be with these disruptors. So, like you said, I think holding off, not getting too antsy, like, oh, I got to get this damage done right now for me to stay in this. He says, okay, you know what? Let me go ahead and take my time, Let me build up a couple of disruptors. Let me find my engagement and, go in for the kills. So we'll see how this pans out. Already 2 disruptors, 2 more on the way. And, on a map like Beckett Industries, there's a lot of tight choke points, not a lot of places to kind of macro your units. We'll see. Does look like Classic is ready to take a fight. Going to warp in a couple of more High Templar. Get some more Archons in there before he takes this fight. And there's really only Stalkers and a couple of Disruptors. So it is a scary play from Zest, but this is the only play he's got. So let's see what happens.
Alright, doesn't take too much damage from that first Disruptor hit.
Does get a couple of Zealots. Nice start for Zest. Not the best that he was hoping for, but there's still time. Of course, we do have the Guardian Shield going up for Classic. Warping in a few more Zealots behind all of this. He's got those he's got those Archons as well as the Immortals. Does decide to pull back. Says, you know what, I don't need to fully engage in this right now. Go ahead and just back up. And he's making a tech switch into Stargates. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, considering that he's just way too behind to catch up in Disruptors, I think, this is the best call, because what you need is those Phoenixes to lift up those Disruptors and help cancel out those Disruptor balls from firing out. And so if he can kind of lift up the Disruptors, his army is way stronger than what Zest has. And I think that is a really, really smart decision by Classic, making sure that he doesn't throw this game away by engaging during the fight and losing 2 Disruptor hits. Just getting that counter to the Disruptor and then engaging. I think that's a really smart way to go.
Fleet Beacon on the way. It looks like Zest going to be going into Colossus now, so not going to go into like a mass Disruptor or anything. And I guess I don't mind that for the Zealots, but again, both players just kind of sitting back. 4th base is on its way for Zest. 4th base has been complete for Classic for a while. Wouldn't mind seeing them take maybe a 5th base. He's going to send across a couple of Zealots. Looks like through the War Prism, but he's got to be careful. Here comes Zest with those Stalkers. This takes the War Prism, no problemo. And now both players going into that +3. It's going to be Tempest from Classic. What do you think about this, Snoopy?
I have no idea. It's not like there's like carrier tech out here for Zest. So I'm not quite sure why these Tempests are out here. I don't know. I'm not a fan of it. Although I think he's far ahead enough that he can afford to go for Tempest, but I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference. I mean, the best it can... Oh, actually, as I say that, never mind. I think he might have scouted the Colossus. Yeah. His Observer does scout the Colossus deck. So, okay, there we go. The Tempests are for exactly those Colossuses. Because, of course, they do extra damage against those Colossus.
Awesome. So, it's going to go into a DT Shrine with this as well, getting an Oracle behind all of this, which will open up 4 Stasis Wards if needed, as well as, I guess, potential Revelates, or even just using the extra damage. But Classic now with those Tempests. Blinking forward is Zest, going to pick off that single Tempest, and looks like Zest is ready to pull the trigger here.
Yeah, I think he's got to wait for that Oracle to Revelate, because if he can Revelate, he can kind of keep his Tempest at a safe zone where the Stalkers can't really blink underneath them. And oh, what? That was quite a risky blink there by Zest. Oh, Classic does not want to go through that choke area. Gotta be careful.
I mean, the good thing is those Tempests are going to be able to at least pick off a couple of units, but the blink forward once again from Zest will be able to pick off a couple of Tempests. Guardian Shield really honing in on all of those Stalkers. If you ever want to know how many Stalkers could fit in a Guardian Shield, well, there's your answer. And Zest now just looking for the right opportunity to attack. Disruptor shot's going to go off to keep the army of Classic at a distance. Guardian Shield's going up once again for Zest. And the Phoenix looking for their shots here, but oh no! Huge Disruptor shot onto the army of Classic. And it looks like Classic trying to push this back, but is it going to be enough? 121 supply to 81 in this case. And Zest is going to continue to push in onto this third base. More Stalkers and Zealots to join the fight. And these Disruptor shots are just killing it. Phoenix trying to pick up the Disruptors, trying to eliminate them. Colossus are going to end up falling. Guardian Shield goes down, as it looks like Zest is going to start blinking on top of the Immortals, the Archons as well. The only thing remaining now are the Phoenix and the Tempest. Ooh, TT's getting added into the mix. There's no detection here. Yeah, he doesn't have any detection.
Yeah, those were the saving grace. It looked like Zest was going to take it, but those DTs getting so much slices and dices on those Stalkers really kind of changed the tide of that fight. Now, Classic did lose 15 probes during that fight, but he was so far ahead in the economy that even though he lost all those probes, he's still relatively even with the Protoss, especially since he does have a 5th base compared to the 4 bases of Zest.
Really good stuff. Still has some of those Tempest up, which is going to be really nice, as well as the Archons. And we do see Zest looking to maybe potentially go down for like a multi-prong attack here, but was so close there looking for Zest. Looks like he is going to attack into the 4th base, blinks back. Can't really fully commit at the moment because, I mean, now the tides have turned. 109 army supply to 69 of Zest. And yeah, I mean, the Stalkers are really good, but at this point in the game, with what Classic has, I mean, you cannot engage this, and it looks like Classic just going to start pushing towards the 3rd base. There are some more Stalkers to join up, and a couple of Colossus as well, but I'm starting to worry here for Zest.
Yeah, Classic just has a better army composition here. Tempest counters the Colossus. They go down very, very quickly. The Archons cleans up the rest, and there we have it. Classic will win the first best of 5 series of today.